Hello everyone, how are you all doing today? I hope you are doing very well indeed. It is chucking it down with rain here and I've been putting off the dog walk all morning when the weather's been lovely, thinking no, it's fine, I'll do it later. And now it is raining. So I thought before I do the dog walk and in the hope that it brightens up, I could take you through some plants that I personally think are super underrated houseplants. These are all ones that I would also say fall into the easy plants category. And without even meaning to, I made this list of all the plants that I wanted to show you and I looked at it and I was like, interesting. I've actually chosen plants that are all from completely different genuses, genera, I don't know, completely different genus of plants. So 10 plants to show you 10 different genuses. But as I say, these are all ones that I personally feel deserve more attention than they get. So that's the plan today. But first, if you're new here, hi, my name's Claire and this is Yoli. I make videos all about houseplant care, sharing tips and tricks I've learnt over the years to help keep your plants happy and healthy. And I've also realised that a lot of the ones that I've put on this list are plants that I don't really talk about that much and I don't really show you much of on my channel. I guess a lot of the time because they are just very easy plants and there's not a lot going wrong with them. But yeah, you might see some that you haven't seen before in this video. So yes, I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. So, as I always say, these plants are in no particular order. They're all ones that I really love, but I haven't ranked them in any way. Oh, hello, Yoli, classic timing, in you come. But the first one that I've got on this list is actually one that I do speak a fair amount about because I just think it's amazing. And it is the Raphidora foraminifera. And honestly, I cannot believe that more people are not growing this plant. It's such a gorgeous Raphidora. It obviously starts off with very kind of, thank you, Yels, very almost like generic leaves. They look very normal, very just kind of like your standard green leaf. And as the plant grows and matures, it gets these beautiful fenestrations that happen right down the center of the leaf, close to the main vein. And I just think that is so unique, so beautiful. And I don't have any other plants like it. I really do think it's amazing. And the amount of times that I've looked online when because as you guys know, I try and make like individual care videos on plants from time to time and like do breakdowns to try and help you learn about the plants. And the amount of times I've been like, I feel like I can talk about this plant in a lot of depth because I've grown it for quite a long time, it's done very well, but no one seems to want to hear about it. I don't think there's a single care video that exists on this plant. So I'm like, I feel like maybe 4 people would watch it if I made one, so would it just be a waste of my time, you know? So yeah, if you're able to get even just like a cutting of this plant, I grew this one from a 1-leaf cutting that I got, I think probably about 1.5 years ago now. I picked up a cutting at a plant swap and it's just grown beautifully for me in the time that I've had it. It also, once it gets going, is a very fast growing plant. Like you might remember, I extended its moss pole when I moved in here. So a couple of months ago, I think I'd been in about a month at that point, and already it's growing right off that moss pole. So I think it's probably at the point now where I'm going to do a chop and extend on it, and I'll probably get rid of or combine the top with the bottom of the plant. I was going to say I might chop it up and do cuttings. Maybe I will. If anyone's after this plant, let me know, and I may well send out some cuttings of this. But yeah, just because it is getting so big and so mature, and that's the plant that I want to achieve. Although I started with a little cutting, I would love to grow it big and full and beautiful. And considering how far it's come in the time that I've had it, I do think that is something that's very achievable, particularly at this time of year when it's warmer, there's more light. This plant is just kicking into action like no tomorrow. But as you can see, I am growing this one on a moss pole, and I think that perhaps maybe that's why some people are a little bit off-put by this plant. I know lots of people are trying to cut down the number of plants they've got on moss poles at the moment. Firstly, because moss poles just take up so much space. They're big, kind of bulky things. Obviously, they do take quite a lot of maintenance. You need to keep them hydrated. And also there is that extra element as well of having to keep them maintained pest-wise, because obviously anything that you keep very damp over a period of time can attract things like fungus gnats. I've spoken about how I deal with this in other videos before. Nematodes are my main go-to, although I know lots of people like to use mosquito bits for fungus gnats. But as you might be able to see, I've actually currently got this moss pole wrapped in cling film, which I know doesn't make it a thing of beauty. However, it does just mean that my moss pole maintenance is almost non-existent. I water my moss pole at the same time I fill up the reservoir of this plant, because this is one I'm also growing in semi-hydro. I've got it in a chunky semi-hydro mix. The plant seems super, super happy like that. And because I do wrap the moss pole in cling film, or have done recently, it does just mean that I only need to hydrate the moss pole once every kind of 3 weeks, 3-4 weeks. And that is at this time of year when it's warm. I actually did that as just like a precautionary thing before I went to Malvern to keep it hydrated, because I was going to be away for a little while. But now that I'm back, I've just kind of been like, you know what, makes my life easier. I don't mind the look of it. To be honest, this plant is so bushy and foliagey now. I'm not looking at the cling film when I look at the plant, I'm looking at the plant. So although I don't think it's going to be a permanent fix, for the time being, I'm just leaving it as is. But yeah, as I say, it's just been such a rewarding plant to grow. I've really enjoyed watching it change and evolve, and I really look forward to continuing to grow this plant. So yeah, blows my mind that more people don't seem to have it. And then the next one I've got on my list is an Alicasia, and this is the Alicasia Simpo, which is actually a hybrid Alicasia. I believe it's a cross between the Lucky One and the Alicasia sinuata. And I just think it is the most beautiful, beautiful Alicasia. I know I always bang on about how I really struggle with like the Alicasia Green Shield. Green Shield? Yeah, the Alicasia Green Shield. I don't know why I felt like that was wrong. But yeah, it's got a very similar colour scheme to the Alicasia Green Shield, which ticks a box for me because I just love the kind of subtle drama that comes with the veination just being that little bit darker. And I don't know, I look at this one and it just looks like such a perfect plant. And it's not the quickest of Alocasias to grow. I have found that this one takes a little bit of time to get going. It is currently doing a little bit of the cycling thing. It's kind of got 2 leaves and then it will let one go and then the other one comes in. And there's a lot of Alocasias that I would be really, I was going to say really annoyed at if they were doing that. And in fact, I've spoken about it before, it can be a bit frustrating. However, with this one, I don't know why. I just don't mind it. And I think that's just because it stays looking so lovely even when it has just got 2 leaves. And it is also sizing up quite nicely for me. When I first got this plant, which I believe was just before Christmas, so, oh my God, that was 7 months ago. How was that 7 months ago? Yes, but about 7 months ago, it was significantly smaller, and with every new leaf I have noticed it sizing up really quite nicely. But it's weird, maybe you might be thinking to have an Alicasia on an easy plant list, but there are some types of Alicasia that if you grow them in the right way and in the right conditions, they are crazily low maintenance. Like I've got this one in semi-hydroponics. I've said again before, it is what I would personally recommend for all Alocasias. I find them so much easier to grow in semi-hydro. And in fact, I would go as far as to say I actually struggle with them when I grow them in soil nowadays. I don't know why that is, but this just makes life so easy. And I've got this one just currently growing under my grow lights just there, so it is in this main space, so it kind of gets a combination of, I would say, like medium direct light in the spot that it's in because it's a little bit sheltered, accompanied with, I would say, the equivalent of bright and direct light from the grow light, and it seems really, really happy. I don't think I've ever seen this hybrid big, like grown as a big plant, which is kind of surprising because I know like the Lucky One, I've seen that one grown really quite big before. But again, maybe it's just a hybrid that people don't know about, or maybe there's just not that much of a demand for it. I don't know. But I look at this one and I am just like, I don't understand why more people are not wanting to grow this plant, because it's just lovely. I'm pretty sure I got this one from Downtown Plant Club, which I believe is a company in the Netherlands. I think I'm right in saying that. And I don't think it was very expensive. If I remember correctly, I think I paid about £12 for this plant. And I was just like, that's incredible. And yeah, I have been happy that I bought it ever since. So again, another one that I think is lovely and would highly, highly recommend. And then this one, you probably see it often in the background of my videos, but again, I don't talk about it that much. It's just kind of there, and I think because it is such an easy care plant, I just don't have a lot to say about it. But it is the Variegated Dischia Oantha, and I love this plant. I just love it. I love the pale green of it. I love the really subtle variegation. It's got loads of little just kind of splashy leaves. That one's actually almost like a little full moon leaf. But as a whole, I think if you just stand back and kind of look at this plant, again, I'm filming, I think, from the wrong direction. I always set up here thinking it will be a really nice view, and then actually, especially when it's raining, maybe this is better, or maybe this is better. Okay, yeah, that is definitely better. But yes, the Variegated Dischia Oantha, I just think is so lovely. Again, I always bang on about texture with plants, and I think that's why, like, as I say, I don't talk about it much, but it's usually just on my shelf there, kind of trailing down. I love having it in the background of my videos. I think it looks so pretty. And again, it is so easy to grow. This is one that I picked up at a local garden centre back when I was at the flat. So again, probably about 9 months ago, something like that now. And I got it from the garden centre on like a weird metal hanger with a piece of cork bark on it, and it was growing attached to that because it is an epiphytic plant. It does like to grow on, like in its natural habitat, it would grow on trees, rocks, shrubs, all that sort of stuff. So again, I've opted for a very chunky mix for this one. I could have kept growing it on the hanger, but I just found it quite hard to keep on top of because I was having to water it all the time to keep the plant happy. So I transferred it into this container, which has got semi-hydro on the bottom, and that's typically where I'll fill a little reservoir to. And then all of this is just a really chunky soil mix. And I actually just propagated this plant straight into soil. I took it straight off the hanger. I think I did this in a video actually. I took it straight off the hanger, chopped it up, stuck it in here. And as you can see, it has rooted amazingly, and this is just how I've been growing it ever since. It's one that I do very little to. It's not particularly susceptible to pests. Mealybugs is the one I would be scared of with this plant, but touch wood, that's never been an issue. And I think over time, this is probably going to be a container that's a little bit small for this plant, so I might need to mix it up and maybe in fact put it into a hanger and grow it somewhere else in this space. But for the time being, it does seem really, really happy like this. Because it's a variegated plant and because it's a semi-succulent, again, it is one that enjoys quite high levels of light. It doesn't need direct sun or anything like that, but bright and direct, which is kind of the standard for most plants in this kind of area, but bright and direct light. Also, because this one's been under my grow lights just there, you can see that its new growth is actually starting to come in a little bit pinky. It's sun stressing a bit, which I think is really, really pretty. So yeah, again, very, very easy. I'd say the only thing you'd have to watch out for if you are a beginner with this plant, or if you're prone to really kind of loving your plants a lot and wanting to do plant care all the time, is the fact that it is quite susceptible to overwatering. So I always let this one completely dry out pretty much before I water it again. But yeah, low maintenance and gorgeous. And then I showed this one in a video the other day, and I kept getting messages from you guys being like, what was that Amphtherium? What was the Amphtherium you showed? Because I I put it into this lovely new planter. And this is the Amphtherium SP Morona. And again, I think the reason that I don't talk about this plant more is because it requires such little care. I really don't do much to it, and therefore there's not really a lot to talk about apart from occasionally showing you it. I got this one probably around about a year and a half ago, when I was just starting to get interested in strappy anthuriums, because obviously lots of us have heard of things like the pallidiflorum and the vitarifolium and the kind of classic strappy ones. And then I saw this one, and in fact, when it gets really big and mature, its leaves get even more ruffly. I looked at pictures of it and I was like, oh, it's so lovely. And I think I got this one from Eastern Tropicals. And I remember going on their website and seeing it and thinking, that's actually not that expensive. Again, I think I paid under £20, if I remember correctly, under 20 for this one, which I think is pretty good considering it's one that I would put into like quite a rare category because you don't see it about very much. But yeah, the only thing with this one is that I have found, in my experience, I found it quite slow to grow. I've had it, as I say, I think around about a year and a half, and it's only given me 2 leaves, I think, in the time that I've had it. I don't remember it losing any of its original leaves, but also I don't remember it being this big when I got it. So maybe I'm wrong about that, but it isn't one that's giving me leaves left, right and centre like my pallidiflorum, this one here, the one that just won't stop growing. That one is constantly giving me new leaves. So yeah, again, if you're looking for something that's going to be really rewarding to grow, but you're not going to perhaps worry about it kind of like outgrowing your house quite quickly, I would say this is a really lovely one. Again, to my knowledge, unless the price has massively changed, it's not particularly expensive. And I must say, it's probably up there with my easiest anthuriums. Like, I water it in the spot that I've got it in, which is just over by my north-facing window. I water it maybe once a month, which might seem not very much at all, and it's not very much at all, but the plant stays happy. It is giving me new growth despite the fact it's a little bit slower. And yeah, it just ticks loads of boxes for me. It just stays looking lovely and has given me no issues whatsoever. And then this one, this is such an underrated plant, and this is a philodendron, and this is the Philodendron Campi Lynette. Oh, and I've just watered it this morning and it is dripping all over me. But I've already spoken in this video about how a lot of people in the plant community seem to be moving a little bit away from moss poles, and therefore there has been such a decrease in the interest of philodendrons. And there are some beautiful philodendrons out there, such as this one, that although will appreciate climbing, they don't need to climb. I think probably this one would appreciate a stake, as it is kind of growing out of its pot at an angle at the moment, so I should probably do that. But as you can see, not having a moss pole has absolutely not impacted this plant's ability to grow and look lovely. So yeah, I again can never believe that more people don't have this plant. I know Grow Tropicals had it on their website for a while. I think maybe they might still have it on their website, I don't know. But I find it just really, really adaptable. That's probably, I would say, probably the best unique selling point of this plant, because right now I'm growing it in this room here, and again, it's really happy, growing really well. But again, I know I've got great light in this space. I'm really, really lucky with this room. However, when I was growing this plant at the flat, it was next to my TV, and if I can find a clip of it, I'll put it in. But it wasn't under any kind of grow lights, and it was in actually quite a low light spot, and the plant was growing really, really well for me. I think I have noticed it size up a little bit in the time that it's been here, but it hasn't been significant. So I wouldn't say that this is a philodendron that you can't have if you only have kind of like a low to medium light space. I would say absolutely give it a go. It's not always the fastest to grow. I've had this one for over a year now, and I'm trying to remember how big it was when I first got it. I mean, if you look at the size of the leaves here at the bottom, that's kind of what it was giving me initially, and now it has sized up hugely. But yeah, it's one that I feel like at the moment at this time of year in growing season, it's giving me maybe like a leaf every couple of months, which when you compare to some other types of philodendron might seem quite slow. But then again, like I still think that is quite I wouldn't say speedy, but like it's a good amount of growth. It's not like it's one leaf a year or anything like that. But no, it's a very, very hardy one. I think it's one that would be fantastic for beginners. The only thing I would say with this plant is that it is quite pest prone. So I would personally recommend, if you can, if you're keeping it in amongst lots of other plants where things spread quite quickly, give it a wipe down with horticultural soap once a month or something like that, just as kind of a preventative. I don't think this one currently has anything to worry about, but the main thing I've struggled, and in fact you can see a little bit of damage on the underside of this leaf here, the main thing I've struggled with over the years with this plant, over the year I've had it, has been spider mites, and they can be a little bit of a nightmare, especially when we get into kind of like the drier seasons and we've got our central heating on and the humidity drops. So yeah, just as a precaution, I would say if you plan on growing this plant amongst lots of others, just give it a wipe down now and again. And if it's one that you don't plan on growing amongst lots of other plants, then chances are you probably will be fine, but I would still just remain quite vigilant in your checking. But no, it's a gorgeous one. I love it so much. This is one that I don't talk about enough. I'm really excited by this plant, and I just look forward to seeing what it does next. I can't wait to see how big I can grow it, and probably have a little switch up of how I'm growing it. As I say, I do think it would like to be staked. It's probably due for a repot as well, because I'm not sure I've even repotted the plant since owning it. So yeah, I can put this one on my to-do list. But yeah, it's gorgeous. And then another very big one, and one that I am constantly getting asked questions about, but I don't talk that much about on my channel, is the Denbakia Tropic Snow. And how beautiful is this plant? It's got to be, firstly, one of the easiest Denbakias I've ever grown, but also just probably one of the easiest plants. Like, I really don't do much to this plant, and I know I've said that about quite a lot of the ones on this list today, but it's genuinely true. Like, I've got a very big plants collection, and I often find myself being like, oh god, this one needs water again, and this one, that one. This one again can go for a month easily without water, and it will just be fine. And I got this one actually at my friend Emma Good Growing at her wedding, because she had a very planty wedding. She used plants instead of flowers, and it was just beautiful. And at the end of it, there was the opportunity to buy plants if you wanted to, and I had been eyeing this one up and dancing around it all night at her wedding, and I was like, I'm taking this one home. And I'm so glad I did, because it has brought me an unbelievable amount of joy in the time that I've had it. I grew it at the flat originally, and it grew really well there. It was actually, I would say, growing quicker when I was growing it at the flat than it is here, and that is just because it had better light at the flats. Like, it was, I think, about a metre back from the big windows I had there, whereas here, this is the plant that I grow over in my dining area, which is the one area of the house that has no windows at all. It's got the light that comes through from this room, and it's got the light from the living room on the other side, but I would say it is quite a low light spot. And it's probably actually not ideal for this plant. I have noticed that in my time of living here, although its growth hasn't significantly slowed down, the growth it is giving me is a little bit smaller size-wise than what it was before. So yeah, I think I should probably think about introducing a grow light of some sort above the plant. I think it would definitely appreciate that. But I have not always had a great experience with Denbakia as a genus. It's one that at times I found really quite difficult. I know it's one that people always say is really great for beginners, and I don't think that is always the case. There are some types of Denbakia that I'm like, steer well clear. And I've said it before, but in my experience, the ones that have, like this one, that have more of kind of a shiny, waxy texture, almost like a little bit of a plasticky feel to their leaves, as opposed to ones such as the Denbakia Sparkles or something like that, or the leopard lily, I think it's called, or commonly referred to as, and it feels more, almost more like fabric, more materially. I find the waxy, plasticky ones, I'm describing this badly, but I find the ones that are a bit shinier in their foliage, I do find them easier to grow. I'm not quite entirely sure why that is. I also find them much less susceptible to pests, and this is one that has been shoved right in the middle of all sorts of plants that have had pests in my time of owning it. As I say, I have, over my time of having this plant, I've had a collection that has at times been very, very crammed together, particularly at the flat. Every single one of my plants was kind of touching and buttered up, and pots inside pots and all sorts, because I didn't have that much space to grow things. And despite all odds, touch wood, I think bar maybe like 1 or 2 thrips here or there that I've just kind of squished, I have never had, oh, I never want to jinx it, but I have never had pests on this plant. So yeah, it's proven just how adaptable it is in regards to lighting and stuff like that. It, in fact, is very much due for a water now. That soil is bone dry, but I do pretty much just wait for the plant to dry out, and that's how I tell. So yeah, it's one that I would recommend to anyone. I think it's a great plant. I think it's gorgeous to look at and just very easy to grow. So yeah, winner all round. And then this is one that I have banged on a fair amount about in my time of owning, and for some people it's considered to be quite a common houseplant. However, I still think it's very underrated, so I have decided to include it in this video, and it is the Mandula Pyrus. I just think this plant is amazing. It's one that, personally, if I had to rebuild my collection from scratch, it could actually be maybe the first one I start with, or definitely one of the first, because it just ticks every box. You can train this plant to kind of trail, you can train it to climb walls, you can put it on a moss pole and let it get really, really huge if you want to. There are just so many growing possibilities with the Mandula Pyrus, and I think it just brightens up any space. And in fact, when I went to Malvern this year to do a show garden for the RHS Spring Show, I decided to bring some of my own plants, because although we were getting plants in to kind of style our show garden, I was like, there's some that I just feel like I want to bring my own, because I know I've got them and I know they're super, super beautiful, and I don't think we'd be able to get anything kind of as big or mature or as lovely. And so I actually brought my Mandula Pyrus with me, and it was at the front of my show garden. And I just think it looked amazing. And also when it came to the end of the show, because lots of the plants in our piece were then for sale, I had so many people come up to me and be like, is this plant for sale? And I had to be like, no, absolutely not. It's my pride and joy. I'm taking it home with me. It's another one as well that I got as cuttings from another plant swap. I think, was it a year, 2 years ago? It started as, I think, about 3 cuttings, and then the lovely person I got it from, I ran into them again at the next plant swap, and I was like, I'm loving the Mandula Pyrus, and they were like, here, have some more cuttings. So I've managed to fill the plant out quite nicely as time has gone on, but these are all just still the original cuttings in more of a mature state. And yeah, it's a plant that I feel like I will never part with. I just so passionately love it, and I really do think that it's a plant that, I mean, a plant that everyone should grow. Obviously, some people would probably look at this and go, oh God, no, that's not the plant for me. But yeah, if I had to really curate my collection, it would be one that absolutely sat quite highly in my selection. And yeah, it kind of blows my mind that it's not one that you see about more. It's also one that is just so incredibly resilient in so many ways. Again, lighting wise, although it's a variegated plant and technically does love bright and direct light, when I was at the flat, I was growing it on one of my low light hanging rails, and it still put out growth and it still grew really healthily. Granted, it was slower to grow in that environment, but it still gave me lovely growth. And also, when I took it to Malvern, it sat in that cold, dark warehouse for 2 weeks before the show actually opened. And like, honestly, we were so worried about the plants. It got to like 5 degrees Celsius at some points, and we were like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen to all the plants? And obviously I was worried about all of the plants, but my main focus was my babies that I had brought, and the other one that I brought was a Hoya, and I was like, that's obviously going to be fine. But I was a little bit concerned about the Mandula Pyrus, and it just did amazingly. Just look at that new leaf. It's just given me, it's so beautiful. So yeah, again, it's very cheap to buy, very easy to grow from cuttings. So yeah, go get one. And then this one, don't talk about this one enough, and it is, again, really easy, really lovely, really beautiful. It is the Schizmaticus SP Silverborneo. And I've spoken about Schizmaticus as a genus on my channel a fair amount over the years, because my first encounter with Schizmaticus, never know exactly how you say it, but was in the form of the Schizmaticus Wallachii, which has a lot of similarities to this one. It's got much more kind of pointy arrowhead shaped leaves, and I found it really, really difficult. In fact, initially I think I got on quite well with it, but again, my God, was that plant susceptible to pests. And I put it outside to recover from, I think, probably every pest in existence, and I forgot about it and it died a death out there. And then I did actually rescue one of Emma's Schizmaticus Wallachii as well. That one's rehabbing again. So when I first stumbled across this species of Schizmaticus, I was like, oh my goodness, you don't see this plant about much. Is that because it's really quite difficult? And no, is the short answer. I have had such a good experience with it. Again, I'm growing it in semi-hydroponics, so I've got a little reservoir of water at the bottom of the pot, and it has just grown beautifully for me like this. I do keep a very close eye on this one for pests, particularly when it was living in my cabinet, because it was so kind of crammed in a very warm space with lots of other plants. But again, like I just said about the other one, besides the odd one or two that I've been able to very kind of easily squash, I haven't experienced a pest outbreak in the same way with this plant as I have with other types within the genus. I also am just such a sucker for bluey plants, like the ones that have such a lovely, I mean, it's in the name, it's Silverborneo, but like a silvery bluey tone to their leaves. I always think this one almost looks like lovely feathers. It kind of almost, in fact, looks like a calathea. You know, I would say it is a hardy alternative to a calathea because it's one that doesn't require any like specifically ridiculously high humidity levels or anything like that. I would say it is one that definitely prefers it on the upper side, as pretty much all tropical plants will, but I've never had complaints from this one when the humidity has dropped lower. I haven't experienced any brown tips or cracked edges or anything like that. So yeah, I would say if you want something calathea-esque that is vibrant and beautiful and very adaptable, again, lighting wise, although this one appreciates lighting bright and direct, as most plants do, it can also do very well in lower lighting conditions. Again, when I was at the flat, it grew very well in multiple different positions there. So yeah, the only thing again I'll say about this one is it's not very fast to grow, and I think maybe that's why I don't talk about it more on my channel. There aren't kind of the really exciting updates in the same way as there are with some of my other plants, but nonetheless it is one that just looks so lovely, is a pleasure to grow and brings me a lot of joy. It's just one that looks gorgeous. I just look over at it and I'm like, okay, maybe you don't excite me the most, but I think you're lovely. It's almost like a gorgeous blue bunch of flowers. And then finally, this isn't actually the final plant. I missed one on the list, so we'll come back to that in a minute. Finishing with another bluey plant. This one here is the Agalan Greyhound, and I've spoken about this plant before. I don't think since I was living at the flat, I don't think I've spoken about it since then, but I love this one because it's got the gorgeous white stems and then those beautiful patterned leaves. I was actually looking at this one as I brought it over and I was like, oh dear, this one needs a dust. So I think actually I might put it outside in the rain after this and let it kind of wash away, because it's a plant that I really love. It brings me a lot of joy. Again, similarly to what I just said about the Silverborneo, it's not one that I kind of look at and go like, oh, exciting, it's giving me new growth. I just appreciate the look of the plant, and it's one that's growing currently in again, what I would consider to be really quite a low light spot. It's at the bottom of my staircase. Although my front door is technically glass, we've put like stained glass panels over it, so it gets no direct light, and for the majority of the day it is, yeah, a very low light spot. So I actually thought to myself when I first put the plant there, is the plant going to survive? And not only has it survived, it's put out loads of new growth. As you can see, it's currently giving me new leaves right now, so it's clearly happy in that spot. Again, I've got it in semi-hydro. I do find typically for Aglaonema semi-hydro, it's not a must. Like, I do have some still in soil, but again, if you just want to make your life a lot easier, it is a genus of plant that responds very, very well to semi-hydro growing. And again, obviously if you were to increase the light of this plant, chances are it would grow a little bit quicker, but it's not one, and again, as I say, probably down to the positions I grow it in, but it's not one that I've ever thought as being particularly fast to grow. So if you're looking for kind of a beautiful space filler, that's how I kind of see this plant for me at the moment. But every time I come down the stairs, I'm like, oh, it looks really lovely. So it is one that I see and appreciate on a daily basis. And I know Aglaonema as a genus is one that, I mean, it's one of my favourites. I think it's such a diverse genus of plants. There's so many beautiful species within it. And there's loads, in fact. Oh, I've just realised that this, in fact, is not the last plant. I've missed one. I've just looked at one and I've been like, I didn't include that one. But yes, there are lots of different beautiful species of Aglaonema within the genus, and this is just one that I feel like I don't see it in other people's collections enough. I always wonder why more people aren't growing this plant. So yeah, again, another one I would highly recommend. And then the one that I forgot, and I've actually somehow ended up with 3 of this plant in my collection, and I do need to pot them up together, but this one is the Dina Goldiana, and oh my goodness, how beautiful is that? I think for a lot of people, Dracaena, I've just thought of another Dracaena I could have included as well, but Dracaena is one that people can just think of as like, I don't know, a bit boring, a little bit like, I guess, predictable and not that exciting. And there are quite a few species of Dracaena that I also feel that way with. However, when I stumbled across the Goldiana, I was like, oh my goodness, just look at that foliage. And in fact, I've got an even bigger one here. This one is very dehydrated at the moment, hence the very, very, very curly leaves. But I just think it is such a beautiful Dracaena. I also love how the new growth comes in really pinky and then it kind of fades to this gorgeous, almost like, I almost want to say like snakeskin pattern, like vibrant green snakeskin pattern. And my plan is, as I say, to pot all of these together and get a lovely full one going. I'm trying to be a little bit better in regards to, like, if I have got duplicates of plants and I'm not loving them in the spot that they're in, combining them, making them into a bigger, fuller plant and making my life a little bit easier. I've been trying to do that with quite a lot of my plants over the last few weeks. And yeah, I don't really know why I've got 2 of these ones, but that's the grand plan. But again, they are very adaptable. They're very drought tolerant. As I say, this one is telling me very clearly right now that it's ready for a drink. And it's very good at doing that. As you can see, curly, curly leaves. When that time comes, I just go, oh, okay, need to throw some water on you. Again, lighting wise, it can adapt to lots of different conditions. I've got this one currently in what I would probably consider to be like kind of a medium light spot. It's about 2 meters back from a window. And the reason I moved it, in fact, was because I did have it right up in the window for a while and it started to scorch and burn. That could just be down to the fact that I hadn't acclimated the plant properly, but I think more just we suddenly had this like crazy heat wave here in the UK out of nowhere, and all of my plants went from kind of like UK winter conditions to like blazing hot summer, and so I had a few burning incidents. But no, really rewarding to grow, really just lovely, just a really unusual, gorgeous plant that I feel like more people would appreciate and maybe don't know about. So yes, I think I got them all. I think that's all of them now, but I really hope that you've enjoyed this video. I had so many more that I could have included on this list. There are actually quite a lot of plants in my collection that I look at and I'm like, I don't really show you much, or I don't really talk about you. And yeah, like typically that is just because they are nice, plain sailing, lovely plants that don't need a lot of talking about. But if you do want more videos like this, please let me know in the comments and I will happily make them. And let me know as well down in the comments what some of your favourite underrated houseplants are. I would love to know. I would absolutely love to know, because there's so many gorgeous ones, so many that just kind of fall under the radar because we have so much choice nowadays, don't we? Almost too much. But yes, if you did enjoy this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, have a lovely day, and I will see you in the next video.
Stay sexy, plant lovers.